All right, thanks guys. Happy Easter to you. And if you want to know what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my website, I'll explain a little bit more about that at the end of the video. But before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick time out and welcome you to the video. My name is Brock Page and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. I also sell my personal bets on brockpage.com. And I have packages on that website starting at just $1.99. Now, if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, the link for that pick is in the description section below. We currently have over 850 members who are signed up and active on that website right now. And if you want to see my current betting record, you can also do that for free right now as well by going to the homepage at brockpage.com. It's actually located right there on the homepage for all to see. And just remember, guys, if you sign up for a package here today on my safe and secure website, you're actually going to get access to that membership that you pay for here today every single day, all the way through the end of April. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some Major League Baseball content. We're going to go ahead and start off with the Yankees taking on the Orioles, 1:05 Eastern first pitch. On Sunday, April 17th, 2022, the New York Yankees are minus 180 with the total at 8.5. Nestor Cortes for the Yankees, Bruce Zimmerman for Baltimore. Now, Zimmerman struck out 4 batters and allowed 0 earned runs in his season debut. And believe it or not, guys, this Baltimore pitching staff has actually been pretty good to start the year despite their current record. They're actually amongst the better teams in the American League in keeping the ball inside the yard. They're also allowing only 3.8 runs a game. Now they're taking on a Yankees squad on the other side of things who's been struggling at the plate themselves. And as a matter of fact, the Bombers are averaging only 3.1 runs a game offensively. So certainly getting off to a slow start with the bats. Now the Yankees also dropped 2 out of their last 4, with losses coming against the likes of Toronto and this very Baltimore team. Now, when it comes to cashing out on the run line, well, the Yankees currently have a losing record against the number this season. When it comes to the total, 7 out of New York's last 9 fell under the line. Meanwhile, Baltimore is a perfect 8-0 to the under for the entire season themselves. I'm going to lean toward Baltimore plus 1.5 and the under 8.5 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be Nats taking on the Pirates, 1:35 East. Washington's minus $1.20, totals 8.5. Patrick Corbin for Washington, Jose Quintana for Pittsburgh. Now Quintana comes into today's ball game with a respectable 1.69 ERA. The Pirates have also gotten the W in 3 out of their last 4 ball games, and they scored 6 runs or more in those victories. Ke'Bryan Hayes is batting .400 right now with 12 hits and 5 runs scored. Meanwhile, Brian Reynolds has hit 2 home runs and has 15 total bases. Now, when it comes to the hitting in this one, the Pirates are actually in the top 5 in the majors in team batting average. They're taking on a Washington team on the other side of things who's struggled getting hitters out this year. Washington actually finds themselves in the bottom 3 in the majors an opponent's batting average, and they're also allowing nearly 6 runs a game. Now, Patrick Corbin, he's already 0-2 on the year with a 10.80 ERA and a 2.85 whip. Meanwhile, offensively, this Nats lineup is currently in the bottom 10 in the league in OPS. Now, total-wise, Washington's 5-1 to the over on the road this season. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh went 6-2 to the over in their last 8. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Pittsburgh plus $1 in the over 8.5 runs. Next contest I have for you, it is going to be Twins taking on the Bo Sox, 1:35 East. Now both teams are minus $1.10 with the total at 9.5. Bailey Ober for Minnesota, Michael Wacha for Boston. Now Wacha comes into today's contest with a 2.08 ERA and a 1.15 whip. The Red Sox have also got, let's try that again. The Red Sox have also won 3 out of their last 4 ball games. They scored a good amount of runs in the process. Now, Alex Verdugo, he's hit 3 home runs this season and has an OPS of 1.042. Meanwhile, Rafael Devers has a couple of homers himself, and he also bats .353. Now, they're taking on a Minnesota pitching staff who struggle keeping the ball inside the park themselves. They actually rank in the bottom 5 in the majors in homers allowed per 9. Also, starting pitcher Bailey Ober, he comes into today's contest with a 7.20 ERA after just 5 innings of work. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Minnesota's 6-2 to the under thus far in the season. Meanwhile, Boston saw 5 out of their last 8 fall under the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Boston minus a $1.10 and the under 9.5. Next ball game. It is going to be A's taking on the Blue Jays, 137 East. Toronto's minus 270, totals 8.5. Alek Manoah for Toronto, Adam Oller for Oakland. And even though Oller had a disastrous debut last week, I do think this Oakland lineup can still hang in with the best of them. The A's are currently in the top 3 in scoring, and they're also amongst the better teams in the American League in home runs per contest. Now, Brown, Murphy, and Pinder, they all have multiple home runs thus far in the season for Oakland. And in addition to that, fortunately for those guys that I just mentioned, they're taking on a Toronto pitching staff who struggled with homers this year themselves. These guys are actually in the bottom 10 in home runs given up per contest, and they're striking out only 7 batters a game. And even though starting pitcher Alek Manoah, he's definitely legit, really good pitcher, he did walk 4 batters in his season debut, so a little bit of control issues. Oakland's not a team that you want to give free passes to. They're going to make you pay. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Toronto's last 5 home games got over the line. No real surprise there. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with the A's. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, the Athletics saw 4 out of their last 6 get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Oakland plus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next ball game, Phillies Marlins 140 East. Philadelphia's minus 160, totals 8 runs. Zach Wheeler for Philadelphia, Eliezer Hernandez for Miami. And even though Hernandez had a rocky start in his last outing, he still struck out 6 batters in just over 4 innings of work. And speaking of strikeouts in this one, the Fish are amongst the best teams in the National League in strikeouts per 9. They're taking on a Philly team who averaged only 2.6 runs per contest in their last 6 outings, throwing out yesterday's game, of course. Meanwhile, pitching-wise, the Phil's pitching staff has struggled with giving up runs. They're currently in the bottom 10 in the league in runs allowed per contest. Now, Zach Wheeler's 0-1 with only 3 strikeouts thus far in the year. When it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of this series' last 3 games fell under the line. Meanwhile, the Marlins saw 5 out of their last 8 fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Miami plus 1.5 and the under 8 runs. Next contest I have for you, it is going to be Diamondbacks taking on the Mets, 1:40 p.m. East. The New York Mets are minus 185, totals 8 runs. David Peterson for New York, Humberto Castellanos for Arizona. Now, Berto's got a 6 ERA through just 3 innings of work. And in addition to losing 5 out of their last 7, Arizona, their pitching staff is striking out only 6 batters a game. They're nearly the worst in the majors in that particular category. Now, offensively, when it comes to hitting the baseball, well, it's actually debatable whether Arizona is the worst lineup in baseball. They're currently dead last in the bigs in team batting average, and they're scoring under 2.7 runs a game. Now, they're taking on Drew Peterson, who's yet to allow an earned run this season. As a matter of fact, this Mets pitching staff is arguably the best in the game right now. These guys currently lead the majors in strikeouts, and they also find themselves in the top 3 in the majors in opponents' OPS. Meanwhile, hitting-wise, Brandon Nimmo slammed a couple of homers and has an OPS of 1.137. Meanwhile, Francisco Lindor, he's hit 3 home runs and has an OPS of 1.069. Now, total-wise, New York's gone 6-3 to the under in their last 9 ball games. Meanwhile, New York is 75% to the under for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the New York Mets minus 185 and the under 8 runs. Next contest I have for you, it is going to be Giants taking on the Guardians, 1:40 p.m. East. San Francisco is minus $1.25, total 7.5. Alex Wood for San Francisco. Aaron Savali for Cleveland. Now, when it comes to the pitching in this one, the Guardians are actually limiting their competition to just 196 batting at the plate. And they're also amongst the better teams in the American League in runs allowed per contest. Meanwhile, offensively, hitting's actually been the strength of this Cleveland organization this year. Owen Miller's hit a couple of homers and has a 1.666 OPS. Meanwhile, Jose Ramirez bats .484, and he's leading the majors in RBI with 15 of them. And speaking of leading the majors, well, this Cleveland lineup, they lead the Bigs in scoring and OPS. They're taking on a Giants team who struggles making contact with the baseball themselves. These guys actually find themselves in the bottom 10 in the majors in strikeouts per 9 at the plate. Definitely struggling making contact with the baseball. Now, starting pitcher Alex Wood also comes into today's game with a 4.15 ERA and a 1.38 WHIP. So kind of a uncharacteristic start here to the season for Wood. Now, total-wise, San Francisco saw overs this year against the likes of San Diego and Miami. Meanwhile, 4 out of Cleveland's last 6 got over the posted number themselves. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland plus 105 and the over 7.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Cardinals taking on the Brewers, 2:10 p.m. East. Milwaukee's minus 135 with the total at 8.5. Aaron Ashby for Milwaukee. Dakota Hudson for St. Louis. And even though Hudson ran into some trouble in his last outing, he did strike out 4 batters in just 4 innings of work. Now, this Cardinal pitching staff has also done a pretty nice job early in the season here. They're actually in the top 10 in opponents' OPS, and they're allowing less than 3.5 runs a game. Meanwhile, offensively, on the other side of things, this Cardinals lineup has been really difficult to get out. They're fanning only 6 times a game at the plate, and they're actually in the top 3 in the league in home runs. Now, Nolan Arenado, he's hit 4 homers already, and he has an OPS of 1.538. Meanwhile, teammate Tommy Edman, he's hit 3 home runs himself, and he has an OPS of 1.212. They're taking on Aaron Ashby, who walked 3 batters in his last start, and he also has a whip of 1.60. Meanwhile, offensively, the Brewers simply haven't been good enough. They're scoring only 2.8 runs per contest, and they're actually in the bottom 3 in the majors in home runs. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Milwaukee saw overs recently with the likes of St. Louis and Baltimore. Meanwhile, the Cards, on the other side of things, they saw 5 out of their last 7 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean towards St. Louis plus $1.15 in the over 8.5. Next contest, it is going to be Rays taking on the White Sox, 2:10 p.m. East. Now, both teams are minus $1.10 with the total at 8.5. Vinny Velasquez for Chicago. J.P. Fryereisen for Tampa Bay. And even though J.P. did look real good in his debut, the Rays are currently on a 4-game losing streak, and they've averaged less than 3 runs a game during that time frame. Now, offensively, when it comes to hitting the baseball, they've struggled a bit with power. They're currently in the bottom 10 in the league in home runs, and they're also averaging nearly double-digit strikeouts a game at the plate. Now, they're taking on a Chicago pitching staff on the other side of things who actually does nothing but strike opposing batters out. They're averaging 10.8 strikeouts per 9, and they're also limiting their opponents to a batting average of just 194. Now, Vince Velasquez, he comes into today's contest with a 2.25 ERA through 4 innings of work. When it comes to the number in this one, 4 out of Chicago's last 5 at Guaranteed Rate Field fell under the posted total. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay's 6-3 to the under in their last 9 themselves. I'm going to lean towards Chicago minus $1.10 and the under 8.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Tigers taking on the Royals, and that's going to be a 2:10 Eastern start time. Kansas City's minus $1.25 with the total at 8. Carlos Hernandez for Kansas City. Tyler Alexander for Detroit. Now Tyler does come into today's ball game with 4 strikeouts and a .94 WHIP. So once again, Tyler Alexander, man, you got to spit it out, dude. Come on, spit it out. Tyler Alexander, 4 strikeouts, .94 WHIP. This Detroit pitching staff's also done a nice job keeping the ball inside the park. They're actually in the top 10 in the majors in fewest home runs allowed per game. They're taking on a Kansas City team who certainly does not hit for power themselves. They're actually in the bottom 3 in homers per 9, and they're averaging only 3.1 runs a game. Now, pitching-wise, Carlos Hernandez comes into today's start with an 8.31 ERA and a 1.85 WHIP. When it comes to the total, 5 out of Kansas City's last 7 at Kauffman Stadium fell under the posted number. Meanwhile, Detroit's 6-3 to the under in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward the Tigers plus 105 and the under 8 runs. Next ball game, Angels Rangers 2:35 Eastern first pitch. The LA Angels are minus $1.15, totals 9.5. Jose Suarez for the Angels, Martin Perez for Texas. Now Perez is 0-1 with a 6.75 ERA, and he's also a part of the worst pitching staff in baseball right now. The Rangers currently allow more runs in more homers per 9 than any other team in baseball. Their opponents are also hitting .293 against them, and they also rank dead last in opponents' OPS. So these guys are dead last in just about every important category when it comes to pitching. Now they're taking on an Angels lineup who loves to hit the baseball themselves. They're amongst the American League leaders in offensive OPS, and they're actually leading the Bigs in homers per game. Shohei Ohtani's hit 3 bombs already and has 20 total bases. Meanwhile, Jared Walsh is batting .355 with a couple of homers and 11 total hits. And in addition to winning 4 out of their last 5, the Angels have a pitching staff who ranks in the top 10 in opponents' batting average. Now, total-wise, LA's 3-0 to the over on the road this year. Meanwhile, Texas went 6-2 to the over in their last 8 at any location. I'm going to lean toward the LA Angels minus $1.15 and the over 9.5. Next contest, it is going to be Cubs taking on the Rockies, 3:10 p.m. East. Colorado's minus 130 with the total at 11. Austin Gomer for Colorado, Drew Smyly for Chicago. Now, Smiley's 1-0 on the year with no walks and a .60 WHIP. The lefty's also given up 0 earned runs. Now, offensively, the Cubs have certainly been a handful at the plate this year. They're batting .274 as a team, and they also rank in the top 5 in OPS. Seiya Suzuki's got 3 homers, 10 RBI, and he also has an OPS of 1.442. Meanwhile, Wilson Contreras is batting .304 with 3 doubles and 6 runs scored. They're taking on a Colorado pitching staff who's having trouble keeping runners off the base paths. These guys are currently in the bottom 5 in opponents' batting average, and they're striking out only 6 batters a game. Now, Austin Gomer comes into today's ball game with a 5.79 ERA and a 1.29 WHIP. When it comes to the total in this one, 4 out of Colorado's last 6 got over the posted number. They're also allowing nearly 6.5 runs a game in their last 10 meetings with Chicago. So once again, if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, the Cubs, on the other side of things, they saw 5 out of their last 8 ball games this season get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Chicago plus $1.10 in the over 11 runs. Next matchup, Astros Mariners, 4:10 p.m. East. Both teams are minus $1.10 with the total at 7.5. Jose Urquidy for Houston, Matt Brash for Seattle. Despite a pretty good start in his last outing, Matt Brash is currently 0-1 on the season, and the Seattle pitching staff has really struggled keeping the ball in the park. The Mariners are actually in the bottom 3 in the bigs in homers allowed per 9. Meanwhile, offensively on the other side of things, Seattle's scoring just 3.7 runs a game. They're taking on a Houston pitching staff who actually does a pretty nice job keeping the ball inside the park themselves. They currently rank in the top 5 in homers allowed per contest, and they're actually giving up only 3.2 runs a game. Now, Jose Urquidy is also 1-0 in the year with a 1.80 ERA and a .80 whip. When it comes to the total on this one, Houston's 6-2 to the under in their last 8 outings. Meanwhile, Seattle's 6-3 to the under in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward Houston minus $1.10 and the under 7.5. Next contest I have for you, it is going to be Reds taking on the Dodgers, 4:10 Eastern start time. The LA Dodgers are minus 205 with the total at 8.5. Andrew Heaney for Los Angeles, Tyler Mahle for Cincinnati. And even though Mahle was dominant in his last start, I'm just not sure he's going to get the run support he needs here today. This Reds lineup is hitting just 185 at the plate as a team, and they currently rank dead last in OPS. Now they're taking on a dominant Dodger pitching staff who could very well shut these guys down today. They're actually limiting their opponents to a 180 batting average at the plate, and they're currently leading the majors in opponents' OPS. Andrew Heaney also comes into today's start with a .69 ERA and, a .69 whip and 0 earned runs allowed. Now, total-wise, 2 out of LA's last 3 home games fell under the posted number. They're also 75% to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Cincinnati saw 4 out of their last 7 road games fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Dodgers minus 1.5 and the under 8.5 runs. Of that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Braves taking on the Padres, 7:08 Eastern first pitch. San Diego's minus $1.25, totals 8 runs. Yu Darvish for the Pods, Bryce Elder for Atlanta. Now, Elder does come into today's contest with a .476 ERA. The Braves have also allowed just way too many runs to start the season. These guys are currently in the bottom 5 in runs allowed per contest. Now, they're taking on a Padres team who's led by Jurickson Profar, who's had 3 home runs and knocked in 9 runners. Meanwhile, Eric Hosmer is batting .394 and has 5 doubles on the year. Now, pitching-wise, on the other side of things, Yu Darvish does look to bounce back after a rough start last time around. This Padres pitching staff as a whole, they are currently in the top 10 in the majors in opponents' batting average, so look for Darvish to turn things around here today. Now, scoring-wise, San Diego saw overs this year against the likes of San Francisco, Arizona, and this very Atlanta team. Meanwhile, the Braves, on the other side of things, they've gone 60% to the over for the entire season themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean towards San Diego minus $1.25 in the over 8 runs. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we have packages beginning at just $1.99. I like Baltimore plus 1.5, under 8.5 runs. Pittsburgh plus $1, over 8.5. I also like Boston minus $1.10, under 9.5. Give me Oakland plus 1.5, over 8.5. I also like Miami plus 1.5, under 8 runs. Give me the New York Mets minus $1.85, under 8. I like Cleveland plus 105, over 7.5. St. Louis Cardinals plus $1.15, over 8.5. I'm also leaning toward the Chicago White Sox minus $1.10, under 8.5. Give me Detroit plus 105, under 8 runs. I also like the LA Angels minus $1.15 over 9.5. Chicago Cubs plus $1.10 over 11. Give me Houston minus $1.10 under 7.5. LA Dodgers minus 1.5 under 8.5. And with my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward San Diego minus $1.25 in the over 8 runs. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on brockpage.com, you're going to get access to that content every single day all the way through the end of April. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you want to get access to every single bet that I give out on that website, you're going to want to think about signing up for my board member tier package. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Sunday to you. Happy Easter to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.